Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to my little speck of space in the Twilight Zone. So today we're going to be discussing something that I think would have even made Rod Serling think twice before turning out the light, and that is the mysterious Men in Black. So, not talking about the movies, of course, though they do propound one of the most common theories for the Men in Black, which is that they are government agents whose sole purpose is to spread disinformation and fear regarding alien life, and somehow that sounds a lot more sinister than Tommy Lee Jones and Will Smith, but I guess I'm getting ahead of myself. So, what are the Men in Black? Besides creepy as all get out. The modern term Men in Black was coined by Al Bender and popularized by John Keel and Gray Barker. And a side note here, Gray Barker is a controversial figure in ufology. But, you know, I've read some of his books and I definitely say they're still worth reading. So there are several physical characteristics that most Men in Black sightings include. One of them, surprisingly, is that most of them wear black. No kidding, right? However, that isn't to say that all Men in Black wear black. Kind of confusing, I know, right? So some of them have been observed wearing plaid, which, of course, is a very popular print in the world of the paranormal. Some have been observed wearing blue work clothes or coveralls, and in one well-known occasion, they were dressed like a hippie. Leave it to John Keel to find an encounter with the Men in Black where they were dressed up as a hippie. But for the most part, as the name suggests, they usually wear black suits that are outdated or ill-fitting in some way. Most Men in Black tend to be either very tall and thin and almost vampiric. And there are some sightings then of very, very short Men in Black. Almost all of them tend to have exceptionally bulbous craniums and very pointed, angular faces. Some are very pale, almost vampiric again, while others have a more olive complexion or look almost sunburned. There are lots of sunburned reports. Most of them have hair that is... Witnesses say it kind of looks like a wig, or that it's been recently dyed or something like that. Cropped close behind the ears, and usually the hair is, again, a very deep, almost fake black color. And their eyes are usually very large and very dark, and typically unblinking, so kind of weird. And yeah, their clothing, that is an interesting study. Pretty much every report of the Men in Black says that their clothes seem off in some way. They seem strange, outdated, or as Keel pointed out in the Mothman Prophecies, not yet in fashion. Particularly the shoes, which in the 60s, witnesses said that their shoes looked like thick-soled futuristic moon boots or something like that. Their clothing, obviously typically a black suit, often doesn't fit, or it looks like it's two different sizes. Several famous accounts make note of how the pant legs are so short that you can actually see their white socks. And weird side note, there was actually one encounter, again in the Mothman Prophecies, where the witness said that poking out of their shoe was a neon green wire that ran up into their pant leg, and of course they could see the wire because the pant legs were too short. The material of their clothing is often regarded as strange as well, and it gives the impression too that it's almost futuristic or space-ish. And usually they're also very disheveled. They try and look very put together, and it doesn't work. So again, not all Men in Black wear black. They've been observed in street clothes, typically ill-fitting or off in some way again. Military uniforms, like I mentioned earlier, the hippie work clothes, and weird enough, actual space suit sort of outfits. And a fair number of them also wear a gold pendant or brooch somewhere on their clothing that witnesses after the fact can't really remember. So, again, everything about them is just so weird. It's just a weird can of worms. So, how to tell if the creep that you're dealing with is a Man in Black, even if they're not wearing black? The determining factor, I would say, is that they are literally world-class weirdos. From trying to drink Jell-O or asking for salt to take a pill, and both of those accounts are from Keel's Mothman Prophecies. They're just bizarre. And simple behaviors like shaking hands or using utensils, they just have a hard time with. They kind of fumble. And their bizarreness can definitely reach the bounds of being dangerous. Witnesses have been threatened, stalked, and in the case of one Mothman witness, nearly kidnapped by the Men in Black. So, but why? And, what really attracts the Men in Black to these terrified witnesses? Well, nearly all Men in Black encounters occur after somebody has seen a UFO or other paranormal occurrence, which I find very interesting. Because it's not strictly UFOs that they're interested in. It's actually, Mothman, ghosts, anything like that. A wealth of Men in Black sightings occurred right alongside the Mothman in Point Pleasant. And, that's the interesting thing. Before you read the Mothman prophecies, you think it's all about the Mothman. It's actually, I would say, mainly about the UFO encounters and the Men in Black encounters. And it's just mind-boggling. And so what the Men in Black really seem to have as their agenda is to shut up witnesses to the paranormal. Modern witnesses alike, to the Point Pleasant witnesses, they're told to keep quiet about what they had seen, and especially many accounts of UFO witnesses that actually get a piece of the craft, or if they even have a photograph, the Men in Black just show up out of nowhere and threaten them to the point that they actually relinquish what evidence they have, and of course they never see it again. Other common behaviors are asking long, detailed lists of questions regarding the witness's health, including scars on the body, which is very interesting given the abduction phenomena, and what different types of cars they and people they know have ever driven, owned, or ridden in. Often they will ask to take a photo of the witness or their house, or they will just outright take a photo of the witness or their house. Some of them claim to be meter readers, census takers, even missing air investigators. Some, like the infamous Indrid Cold of Mothman prophecy fame, actually tell people that they are from another planet and have chosen this lowly earthling as their confidant. And then, like Woodrow Derenberger, typically the poor earthling that's chosen has their lives just totally turned upside down. And, the list of weird crap goes on and on. Keel got mired in the Men in Black world and got to the point that he chased these jerks in their new, outdated black cars, and guess what? They vanish. They turn down a dead end, and they just poof. So, how long does this madness go back? When does the Men in Black phenomena really start? So, what we really consider to be the Men in Black started mainly in the 50s, I would say, though some researchers, myself included, think that their similarity to the vampire legends, it's too great to overlook. Aside from physical attributes like their pale, literally vampire-y look, there's also the kind of chilling notion that they have to be invited in. And even, in the infamous Albert Bender incidents, he invited them in at a separate point in time before they just magically showed up in his house. And, the creepy thing here, too, is that people point out how they almost feel hypnotized. So it's kind of like one of those things, sure, you have to invite the vampire in or the Man in Black, but they can also, look deeply into your eyes and, please invite me in. Anyway, sorry. Prior to the 50s, you do have sightings here and there that, are after the vampire legends were a big deal, but before the Men in Black really became a thing, and that obviously are the Men in Black phenomena, but really, the Men in Black really seemed to pop up en masse around the same time that the flying saucer paradigm took over for unidentified aerial objects. So when we started calling them flying saucers, that's when the vampires that showed up at people's doors really became the Men in Black. So, people have a lot of theories for what the Men in Black are, and I'll be honest, the three main ones, I've gone through each one of them at different points in time in my studying them. The first theory, the neat and tidy theory that, I think most people would really want to believe, it's a really cozy, decent, nothing too confusing theory, is that the Men in Black are the feds, man. Government agents sent out to gather up all the UFO evidence they can find and shut up the witnesses. And it's a very popular theory, and, I bet that some, keyword some, Men in Black encounters are just that. However, the more outrageous behaviors of the Men in Black severely downgrade this theory. Like I said, the drinking Jello one, that was actually a Man in Black that was dressed in military uniform. And the witness did notice, too, that some of the, insignias were wrong. So, and also I don't really know why the government would have someone actually like try to drink Jello. He doesn't make sense to me. And the downright magical abilities of the Men in Black, in my opinion, totally excludes it. Unless the government is run by wizards or something. I mean, vote Gandalf 2020. Besides, I mean, utilizing widespread propaganda is a way more time and cost-effective way to shut up the UFO paradigm. I mean, there's motive for the government being the Men in Black, but in my opinion, there's not means. Then you have the theory that the Men in Black are extraterrestrial in nature, and that could totally be, in my opinion, for most of them. And this is even going with the idea that they may be remote controlled, lacking consciousness or their own volition. Many abduction reports note that the individual aliens seem to be puppets or machines run by some outside force, and it's congruent with Men in Black reports. And otherwise, I'm not discrediting the notion that maybe they actually are humanoid aliens. I know that Sagan's argument is that alien life could be so alien that it wouldn't even seem like life to us. But I mean, if carbon-based evolution started on another aqueous planet and progressed in a similar fashion, I don't know why a humanoid structure couldn't be. So that's just my opinion. Maybe they would end up looking like these bulbous-headed, starry-eyed dudes with, obviously wearing wigs. And of course, why wouldn't an alien be interested in what Earthlings think of UFOs? And that would also explain the magical disappearing black Cadillacs. They just... And some Men in Black also, too, Indrid Cold came down in an object that Woodrow Derenberger described as like a floating gas lamp. So some of them are tied to crafts. However, third theory is that they are, you guessed it, ultra-terrestrial in nature. This fits the strictly magical, showing up in your house at night, shifting library books, David Lynch-style chaos that is also associated with Men in Black. And this also ties into the longer-standing, more occult-related Men in Black encounters that have appeared in vampire legends and demonology across the world. And as to what ultra-terrestrials would be interested in UFO witnesses for, I'm not 100% sure, unless you subscribe to the notion that UFOs can be ultra-terrestrial in nature, which isn't a bad theory in my opinion. So then too, it seems like, again, with Indrid Cold coming in this, gas lamp-looking UFO, he was trying to make it look like, hey friend, I am a space alien. I am from, the planet Lanulos in the galaxy of Ganymede. And that might not necessarily be the case, or sure, maybe he's from there on a totally different wavelength. So, between the alien theory and the ultra-terrestrial theory, I think it's sort of a toss-up. I mean, I kind of lean towards the ultra-terrestrials, but I'm a little bit biased. That's kind of how I always lean. If it's, interdimensional, I'm on board. But I think that they are both equally-ish likely. I think that the government agent one is just, it's the actual scope of what the Men in Black are capable of is just too massive and too strange for the government to be able to, be the explanation for all of it. Like I said, probably some, but I doubt most. I doubt even, some-ish, I'm talking a small minority of sightings of Men in Black are government agents, if even. So, yeah, the ultra-terrestrial theory, it does fit the more magical elements. The one thing that, makes me lean towards that, in reality, the main reason that I would lean towards the ultra-terrestrials for the Men in Black is because they seem to have an issue with time. A lot of the time they show up and they ask what your time cycle is, they ask what time it is, so there's a theory that they're time travelers. That may be. An odd side note here is that the Men in Black in Point Pleasant, as I said before, they were very interested in what cars people drove. And it took me a million years, because I was puzzling over that forever. Why do they want to know what cars people were driving? And then I thought of the Silver Bridge collapse. Tons of cars were on the bridge. What if they already knew what cars would be on the bridge, and what they wanted to find out was who was inside those cars? They wanted to know who was going to go down when the bridge went down. So again, that would be, in my mind, more ultra-terrestrial than extraterrestrial. However, I mean, their magical appearing and disappearing, that could be extraterrestrial, in my opinion, as well. Because it would be accomplished just the same way that missing time is accomplished, where, you know, however they travel, whatever their craft is, it just causes that blank. And so, oh, sure, you're looking at the Men in Black right there, and then they're gone. Well, actually, they just, you know, took off in their saucer like a normal alien would. But yeah, so lean slightly towards ultra-terrestrial, don't totally discredit extraterrestrial. So, I mentioned before that Barker was a little bit controversial, and that is because he did a ton of hoaxing. And it kind of infuriates me because, like, I think that he had good research, but I think he also screwed up with a bunch of stuff. The interesting thing here is that while Bender was silenced, and Keel was totally tormented by the Men in Black for, like, the rest of his life, Barker was never bothered. And I just have to wonder if it's because he was hoaxing almost as much as he was researching. What exactly all this means, man, I guess I don't really know. But if you watch the skies, watch out for the spooks in the funny black suits. It might not be Jehovah's Witnesses at your door. Next time, you hear someone knocking. I am just another tinfoil hat, signing off.
Doing.